Welcome back. We will continue now the laws of the Seder. We discussed last time the law of the matzah. We will continue there now, talk about the matzah. When you eat the matzah at the Seder, that is after you finish the second cup, you finish saying the Haggadah, pretty much the main part of the story, you go and wash your hands, and you're going to eat matzah. This matzah has to be eaten within 4 minutes. At least that ounce has to be eaten in 4 minutes. And this is very important that you're careful with this. This is a very strict law. Because you can't nash on the matzah, eat a little bit here, a little bit 5 minutes later, and that's not called eating. You need to eat the matzah in one eating. And that is measured by the rabbis as to be a 4-minute period. It's measured a certain way. I won't get into that now, but that's the strict law. That ounce of matzah you need to eat within 4 minutes. So don't talk too much. Get it in and eat it and fulfill your mitzvah, and later you can talk as much as you want. The maror is the same thing, the bitter herbs. The bitter herbs, you have to eat an ounce of bitter herbs. That can be used either by actual horseradish or a combination of horseradish and romaine lettuce, which we use because the root of it is bitter, and that's what everyone uses. So you make a combination of horseradish and romaine lettuce, and there you have at least an ounce, and you make a blessing on it. And the blessing is just like on the matzah, you make a blessing, which is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam Asher Kitshanu B'Mitzvosav V'Tzivanu Al Achilas Matzah. The same thing you make for the maror, the same beginning, and you end it off with Al Achilas Maror, and you eat it. And again, that should be eaten within 4 minutes. After that, you have the sandwich. And the sandwich is to fulfill the custom of the way it was done during biblical times. And the biblical mitzvah is to eat the paschal offering together with the matzah and the maror. We don't have the paschal offering, but we do have the matzah and maror, so we eat the matzah and maror separate to fulfill the mitzvah. But to fulfill that aspect of the mitzvah also, we add another ounce of matzah and another ounce of maror, and we eat them together. And that's what we call the sandwich. Another blessing is not necessary, but we do eat it right after we finish the first ounce of matzah and the first ounce of maror. We go on to the ounce of matzah and maror, which is made up in a sandwich. Following that, we have our scrumptious meal. And it's a mitzvah to eat a meal at the Seder. We also have the commemoration of the Afikah, the paschal offering, in the form of, we do two things to remind us of the Pesach, the paschal lamb. One is we put a chicken neck on our Seder plate. We roast it. We do not eat it because we don't want to give the impression that we are eating the paschal meat outside the temple and not in temple times. So we just leave it there. We don't eat it. However, later at the end of the Seder, we will also eat an ounce of matzah which we call the afikomen. We will eat it because in biblical times, the mitzvah of eating the paschal lamb was as follows. You were supposed to eat it on a full stomach, not on an empty stomach. In other words, you ate your meal, and then you ate your paschal lamb on a full stomach. Same thing here. We eat the meal, we eat everything, and at the end, we eat a measure of matzah to remind ourselves of the eating of the Pesach offering. So again, that's at the end of the Seder. One more mitzvah on the night of Pesach, and that is the telling of the story of the Exodus. This is an important biblical mitzvah. So therefore, you got to gather your kids around the table, and it's a mitzvah to tell it to your sons and daughters. Make sure they're there and they don't fall asleep. In order that they don't fall asleep and get bored, we try to get their interest by doing things that cause them to ask questions. For example, right in the beginning of the Seder, we dip a piece of vegetable in salt water, something we never do on any other day of the year or any other holiday of the year. They're going to see that, they'll say, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Once they ask that question, they'll also ask every other question of the Seder, and you'll get into conversation, you'll tell them the story, and they'll hear the story. But you got to make it interesting for them. And you got to make it new. It should be fresh, not to tell them the same exact thing you told them last year. It gets boring. They heard it last year. What's new this year? You got to tell them something new. Get them involved. Apply it to something of today so that they don't fall asleep on you. And they are the focus of the Seder, as the biblical commandment tells us. So make sure that you tell them the story properly. There are 4 questions, and you got to answer it. And as I said, when you do the Seder step by step, you will have fulfilled all the mitzvahs of that night. Now, after the afikomen, it is customary not to eat anything except for the 2 leftover cups of wine, which we drink at the end of the Seder. Again, I said one we do after we eat, when we do the grace after meals, and then we fill up the 4th cup together with the cup of Elijah the prophet when we do the rest of the end of the Haggadah, and we drink that as the last cup, after which nothing else goes into our mouth. As far as food, as far as drink, there are customs, varying customs. Some do drink and some don't. But you probably don't want to drink or eat anything at that point. Anyway, you had so much, so that should take care of it. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a happy and healthy Pesach. And I encourage you to follow the laws as we lay them out in this series. We will do one more, and it's a little different, leftover laws that we didn't cover yet. For example, if someone finds chametz on Pesach, what do you do? And things of that nature, which we will get into in the last and final segment of this series. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.